Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new episode of our F1 2021 My Driver Career Mode. I hope you're all having a great day. Today we have one of my favorite tracks on the schedule coming your way, the Brazilian GP here in Sao Paulo. A very exciting one for myself here to drive. It's definitely in my top three with the current schedule that we have with Singapore. Honestly, I think Brazil has to be right around second or third with a bit of a mix up with my home track there in the Canadian GP. See myself immediately in this episode starting to adapt some parts. We do have some new regulations coming next season. We also are going to be taking a bunch of grid penalties for this weekend. Basically, we're getting ourselves a completely fresh engine for Brazil, kind of like Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton. Obviously, I don't think we're going to be pulling the same speed that Mercedes had there last weekend. That Lewis Hamilton was in unbelievable form here as we would jump through into practice. Now, you can see the weather there. It looks like it's going to actually be a wet start at least, and it might kind of turn into a dry last part of the race, last half maybe or so. So it'll be interesting to see how that messes with the strategy. So we would get underway though here in practice, free practice one here, as honestly so far throughout the season, this right here is the best the car has felt, the most stable the car has felt. I felt like I could actually do what I wanted with the car, and I haven't really felt that this season. So this is definitely the best the car has driven on a circuit all season. I felt like we actually hit the setup the way we needed it to, coming off of obviously our first ever win in Formula 1 in the last episode in the Mexico GP there, as it was an unbelievably crazy Grand Prix, and that's the only reason we even had a chance to win, and obviously things just worked our way, and we were able to pull off the victory. So practice went well. There you see the order there. I forgot to actually scroll down and show myself. I was actually quite a ways down the order, but I never made an attempt on a soft tire or anything, so didn't really have a good judging point here as we would jump through into qualifying one. Once again, nice and sunny here, completely different from the starting conditions that the GP will be in with those wet conditions. It looks like it's going to be more of an intermediate kind of wet instead of a wet. So I think have we even driven on the wet tire in a GP in this career mode yet? I'm not 100% sure. Maybe once. I'm thinking possibly the United States GP of last season, but I can't remember. Nonetheless, we get our qualifying effort underway, and it was, the typical story for myself here. The first lap of Q1, I just never put in a good lap. I don't know what it is, and it would continue. We were 19th place at the end of that first attempt. So obviously, with less than 2 minutes to go, we have to make another attempt to try and get into Q2. This lap went a lot smoother, a lot cleaner, and I found a lot more speed, especially in the second sector here. Now, as I was really starting to abuse the curb and get close to that grass, and we found over half a second just from that, up to 6/10 of a second, and it would get close to 7/10 of a second here as we came up towards this final sector. So by the time we came to the line, 8/10 of a second is what we found. That only puts us 14th, unfortunately, but it was enough to keep us 14th and put us into Q2 there. As you see, we've got a lot of work to do though if we want to make it to Q3. We still have yet to make it to Q3 with Aston Martin. We made it to Q3 with a Haas last season. Obviously, there was a lot of luck involved with weather kind of changing throughout the qualifying session, but very frustrating that we haven't made it to Q3 yet with only 2 races left after today here in Brazil. Now, as we come through though, in our first attempt on our qualifying lap in this second qualifying session. It was a decent lap. It wasn't great, and we crossed the line there, went P9 in front of Giovinazzi, but already down to P10. So we had to go and make another lap here on a worn set of sauce from Q1 to try and go faster at the very end of this session, and I found about a tenth and a half in the car here in the closing moments of this second attempt, but obviously a tenth and a half at this point is not going to get us into Q3. So we come through down the straightaway to cross the line, and we get P14, or actually P13 for a brief moment there as Ocon goes around us, but we would drop to 14th place, just like where we were in Q1. Sebastian there in P13, so it looks like we're really where we belong here, but about half a second off of our Aston Martin teammate as we get ready to go to the grid.
Formula One returns to Sao Paulo once again with the stage set for what promises to be another classic Brazilian Grand Prix. Sebastian Vettel famously clinched his 3rd championship here in 2012, and in 2016, Max Verstappen treated us to one of the finest wet weather drives of all time. Interlagos, always a very special race here in Brazil. It's a 2.7 mile circuit with 9 lefts and 6 rights for a total of 15 corners. But it's a wet one today, so grip and visibility will be at a premium, and the drivers will need to be careful coming up the hill in Sector 3, the scene of many an accident over the years. Joining me on this very wet day is a man who's no stranger to driving in miserable conditions. Anthony Davidson, you've driven open cockpit, you've driven sports cars. How does the wet weather experience change between the different disciplines?
Well, I wouldn't say there's much difference in all honesty. You know, besides the terrifying closing speeds you find in sports cars with the different categories all sharing the same track, driving in the rain is, well, driving in the rain. Of course, the biggest difference between the two is the closed cockpit versus the open cockpit. You get the luxury of staying dry in the sports car, but if your screen ever gets dirty, well, that's a pit stop, not just wiping your visor or pulling away a tear off. But most of the time, you know, they're both as miserable as each other, to be honest.
Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Valtteri Bottas lines up on pole position, and Lewis Hamilton completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Verstappen, Perez, Lando Norris and Leclerc, Gasly, Russell, Tsunoda and Daniel Ricciardo. They'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. Sainz, Ocon, Nicholas Latifi, they've taken a grid penalty, and Vettel, Eilert, Giovinazzi, Lance Stroll and Guan Yu Zhou. Mick Schumacher, they'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty, and the rookie. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track.
There you see the conditions on the track as we get ready to go green from the very back of the grid due to the grid penalties that we are taking due to those engine component changes. Basically a completely new engine here today in Brazil. We've had some wild GPs lately, and I wouldn't be surprised if we had one here today. It's all about keeping it clean on the start, starting in the very last position. Valtteri Bottas, Lewis Hamilton, make up your front row. Then it's the two Red Bull drivers on row number 2 as this lights out, and we are underway here in Sao Paulo, and it's a great start there from Valtteri Bottas. Hamilton, though, not so much. He's taken 3 wide by the Red Bulls down into turn 1. He's in the middle, 4 wide behind them. A huge moment right there, and somehow they all keep it clean there as Hamilton's going to still end up second place after being 3 wide in the middle. Now is, oh, there's some contact there with the Alpine and the AlphaTauri, and we have a crash here out of turn 2 as a big accident here down this little straightaway, and I'm over here in the background just saying, you know what, I don't want any part of this here, and I just hold the brake, get going, and a virtual safety car comes out, and then a full safety car would come out a few moments later, but a big accident there to start the Brazilian GP, and for some reason in the replay cameras I was having a bunch of stutters after this GP, but here you can see exactly what ended up happening right there, and then here's a view from Lando Norris here, who just has absolutely nowhere to go. He gets involved as well. He would remain in the race there, I believe. Now, as you can see, Antonio Giovinazzi, though, on the other hand, would not remain in the race, and then Lance Stroll as well in the Castro Haas was out. So, a wild start in Brazil. Safety car is out. Nobody would come into the pit lane, obviously, because we had only run about a quarter of a lap. And by the time we come through to the end of lap 4, everybody grouped back up together, we would get back underway here in racing conditions. So just avoiding an accident on lap 1, we already gained 5 positions. So that was pretty well, but obviously we just lost an extra 4 laps of racing here that could change the outcome for us at the long run here now. But as well, I was kind of happy that happened because it gets us a little bit closer to the drier conditions. Hopefully here now, as you can see myself making a move up the inside of our former teammate there at Castro Haas of Mick Schumacher down into the left-hander, and we're going to pass him. Guan Yu Zhou just in front of us, and Callum Eilert, his teammate, actually has a time penalty here. We're seeing a bunch of time penalties all of a sudden here in our F1 My Driver career mode. Now at the end of lap 5, a move to the right-hand side of Zhou down into turn 1 here. Now as he's not going to, of course, back out of it, we're going to go wheel to wheel here into turn 2 down towards turn 3 there. Surprising I didn't get a corner cutting warning, but we complete the pass on Guan Yu Zhou, and then I kind of get stuck behind Callum Eilert there in the Alfa Romeo. It was very, very hard to set up a pass on him, and he would continuously just get a better run out of that final turn than I could, and that would basically eliminate my chances without DRS, of course, to be able to pass him. Sebastian Vettel was having the same situation. He couldn't pass Nicholas Latifi there in the Williams, so both of us were kind of stuck, and I felt like both myself and Sebastian had top 10 pace here in the actual race. We might not have had it in qualifying, but finally I was close enough to Callum Eilert to try and make a move to the right-hand side on the beginning of lap 12, but not quite close enough to actually lunge up the right-hand side and go side by side down into turn 1 and 2. And unfortunately there I get a bit of an exceeding track limits warning, but we're okay. That's only our first one. But then at the end of lap 12, another opportunity here coming to lap 13 to make a move on Ilot. Once again, very close. We're going to swing to the right-hand side of the track. We're going to be side by side with Ilot down into turn 1. Just behind, you got the Alpine as well as the McLaren of Russell and Norris. Now, as we're still side by side, not the power down that I was hoping to get right there out of turn 2. And here comes Russell to the left-hand side there in the Alpine. Here comes Norris. He's going to try and take it 3 wide here as we head down towards the braking zone. And I'm going to outbrake every single car and actually complete the pass on Ilot after we were 3 wide going into the corner. And my mindset was, if I go into that corner 3 wide, I'm going to get the short end of the stick. And I decided to just risk it and try and outbrake them all, and we managed to make it work, and we get up into 12th place and try to run down our teammate Sebastian Vettel. But that would be another challenge here. Now, and a little bit later, Ilot and Russell were actually racing with each other, had some contact on lap 15, and Russell would go wide off the course. I don't know why I was having these stutters in the replays. It was really weird, but now there you see Lewis Hamilton actually comes into the pit lane on lap 18, and so does Max Verstappen, who can become world champion at the end of today's episode if he has 50 or more points, or 51 or more points above Valtteri Bottas in the championship standings. So basically, if Verstappen just has a decent finish today, he will win the championship here 2 GPs early. So we still have Australia, we still have Abu Dhabi to take care of here, where we'll have some races to decide. But there you see Bottas now would come out of the pits here on lap 20, and here comes Lewis Hamilton here. It's going to be close between these two, but it's going to be Hamilton actually coming out in front for the time being, and then it was close between the Red Bull teammates as well. Here comes Verstappen side by side with Perez, who's exiting the pit lane. They're going to be side by side down into the braking zone. You can see a lot more confidence under braking there from Verstappen. A little bit of wheel-to-wheel contact actually right there between the two drivers now, as at this point I don't think Perez cares about the championship situation for Max, knowing that even if Max just finishes honestly in the top 10 today, he should lock up the championship here, depending on exactly what happens with Valtteri Bottas. Now, they're still side by side through the second sector, through these tight and windy areas here, but obviously it's not very high speed, so they can make it work, but it would end up being Perez who got the better end of the stick. So everybody in front of me at this point on lap 20 had come into the pit lane except for myself, and you can see that Ricardo and Sainz and them were in front of me. They had just completed their pit stops and came out just in front, but the rain had stopped, so I was under the impression that the track was going to dry out within 3, 4, 5 laps, so I decided to risk it and stay out those extra laps and then make our pit stop for the dry tire, and then we just saved a whole pit stop compared to the AI. Well, now we're coming to lap 26. There's just 11 laps to go in this GP already. Very calm GP other than the first opening lap. And the track has not dried up whatsoever yet. And now I'm realizing Norris is only 13 seconds behind closing. We've been put into a box where if we pit now, we really have to play a huge catch-up scenario. So I decided we're going to risk it at this point. We've been put into a box where we kind of have to stay out and try to no-stop this race depending on what the conditions do here as we go through the grid here with 10 laps to go in the Brazilian GP. Gasly having a tremendous run again here in the AlphaTauri. BMW there in 5th place, Leclerc, Tsunoda, Sainz 6th through 8th, Ricardo 9th, and myself in P10. So I was hoping the track was going to dry up, of course, very quick, but I realized at this point if I pit for another set of intermediates, I'm not going to have enough time to use that fresh tire advantage to get into the points. So I knew I had to at least hope it got dry very quick, or we have to go to the end on the same set of intermediates that we started on here. Now, as you can see, George Russell making a move to the left-hand side of Mick Schumacher. Schumacher not giving him a whole lot of room into the corner there, but you can see Russell still going to be able to pull it off there and move up into 16th place, just behind his teammate of Esteban Ocon, who's not having a very good run today here as we came through to lap 30. 7 laps to go. Norris closing very quick. My tires are dying every single lap, and it's getting slower and slower. My pace is because the tires are, of course, getting worse and worse. Now is up in front of us, though. Daniel Ricciardo is pulling off the track. He is going to be out with a mechanical failure, so that at least moves us up another point position into 9th place. His teammate of Norris is going to come through to, of course, move up into 10th place here in the coming seconds here. But you can see Norris 7 seconds back, and that gap would continue to decrease now to lap 32, coming to lap 33. 3 seconds. He had cut that gap in half. I never really thought we'd be in a position where we would go the whole race on the same set of tires. I think what Esteban Ocon did that in Turkey this season in the intermediate tire compound. So now 1.7 seconds, and the track was getting close to being able to make a soft or dry tire work, but I'm like, well, we only have 3 laps to go coming to the line, so there's no point of even putting on a dry compound tire at this point. Now 3 laps to go, coming to 2 laps to go. There you see yellow flags there on the front straightaway, though. It's Yuki Tsunoda now. He had clearly an engine failure there. A bunch of smoke comes out of his car. He is out, and here comes Lando Norris with DRS, by the way. DRS was activated at this point, or enabled, and there goes Lando Norris up the left-hand side down into turn 1, and I had absolutely nothing. The tires at this point absolutely destroyed. I gave it everything right there, and I just had absolutely nothing for him here. As you see, Tsunoda pulled off, but we're still going to be back up into 9th place because of Tsunoda being out of this race. So thank goodness for some DNFs, because we would be looking at no points right now as I nearly slide right into the back of the British driver of Lando Norris there, but fortunately it didn't happen. Coming to the final lap, Lewis Hamilton leading pits for a soft tire compound. Bottas is going to stay out and he's going to take the lead. Perez and Verstappen are going to pit, and that means Verstappen is going to have to wait for Perez's pit stop to complete, and they're trying a very stupid double stack. This makes absolutely zero sense on the final lap of the GP, and Verstappen's going to go from 4th down to about 6th, maybe 7th place, depending on what happens here with Carlos Sainz, who goes by right there. So down to 7th place. There's Norris here, there in 8th place, but now you can see Hamilton is going to come out in 4th place. He just threw away a win for really no reason whatsoever here. Now, as maybe Mercedes was hoping that this could help Valtteri Bottas get closer in the championship fight and keep it alive, but it's not going to be enough. Valtteri Bottas, though, is going to come through to win the Brazilian GP here in Sao Paulo, and there you see Hamilton right on the gearbox now of Charles Leclerc here out of that final turn. He is going to have DRS that is activated. You can still see it looks damp out on that track, and the intermediates aren't terribly slow, but here comes Hamilton to the left-hand side. They're going to be side by side. It's going to be a drag race to the line for the final podium position, but it's Hamilton by half a car length. Perez got signs. They're coming to the line as well. Verstappen is going to end up in 7th place, but it will be enough to lock up the Drivers' Championship for Max Verstappen for the first time in his Formula 1 career. You can see my right front tire, 64%, 61 on the left front, 62 on the right rear, 55 on the left rear. Vettel 3.4 seconds back. Both Aston Martins are going to be in the points again, and we are going to complete the whole race without a pit stop here on the same set of intermediate tires as we cross the line to finish 9th place. Max Verstappen, with his finish, locks up the Drivers' Championship. He cannot lose at this point with 2 GPs remaining, and for some reason, we win Driver of the Day, and I will absolutely take that as we head to the podium to celebrate Valtteri Bottas' win here.
A great race then, very much as we've come to expect. And a fantastic win here at Interlagos. Talk to me, Ants. What was it that set them apart from the competition today?
It was a question of right place, right time today. We were looking at an entirely different race before the safety car came out, but they were able to take full advantage after the field had been bunched up.
And I can see the drivers starting to approach the podium for the victory celebrations. A real team victory today. Everybody played their part. Congratulations then to Mercedes, your race winners today.
There you saw the podium celebration. Gasly there in 2nd place, Hamilton in 3rd. Leclerc just missed out on the podium by half a car length, and just overall, I cannot believe we were able to pull that off with 0 pit stops here today in Brazil. I'll absolutely take that 9th place finish. Based off of the weather radar or the weather prediction, it looked like it was going to dry up a little bit past the halfway point in this GP at times, but it never happened. So unfortunate. I think we could have maybe gotten even a better finish, but I don't really know. It's hard to tell what would have happened, of course. But there you see, 10th in the standings, 7 points separate myself and Sebastian Vettel with 2 GPs remaining. And we've had some really strong GPs recently that have really put us ahead of Alpine and looking good going into Australia as well as Abu Dhabi. Now, the fight for the Drivers' Championship is over. Verstappen has won the title. For some reason, they didn't have a cutscene for him, so maybe in the next episode they will, or just in Abu Dhabi. But the fight for the Constructors' Championship isn't quite over, as Mercedes still could very, very unlikely beat Red Bull there for the constructors. As always, if you guys enjoyed, you know what to do. I'd like to thank you all for taking the time of your day for watching this episode and other ones on the channel. Thank you to the members as well. You'll be at the end of this episode, and I'll see you guys in the next one for the Australian GP. Have yourselves a great day, everybody.